E-invoicing has gone live, and that's why we are here. The truth is, taxation has gone digital. And any tax professional that wants to actually excel in this period or in this generation must be familiar with technology. So as a tax professional, this simplifies your work in as much as you know how to work with the technology. And it also creates opportunities. As a taxman, the e-invoicing scheme or area is your area. It's actually an area that's opened up a new vista of services that you can provide as tax services to your clients.
On this episode, we are staying with the story of the electronic invoicing introduced by the Nigeria Revenue Service, which was the subject of the workshop organized by the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria in conjunction with the Nigeria Revenue Service. In that first installment of the story, Mr. Mbami Shongwam, a senior tax manager, Tax Automation Department, Nigeria Revenue Service, took us through what electronic invoicing is all about. Mr. Mbami established a relationship between e-invoicing and the ongoing tax reform of the Tinubu government. Mr. Mbami also spoke about the benefits of e-invoicing. In this episode, Mr. Mbami will be walking us through what e-invoicing is all about. But first, this background.
The e-invoicing system started in 2024 with the pilots. And when you look at it, we had key stakeholders that we engaged. And from the pilot, we went 2025 with full deployment, particularly for the large taxpayer segment, who have revenue base of 5 billion naira and above. And currently, that phase has elapsed. By December last year, every large taxpayer is expected to have onboarded to the e-invoicing environment. In 2026, what are we expecting? Other segments are coming on board. The next segment, which are the medium and the emerging taxpayers, which is medium and small enterprises, they would need technological support to ensure that they comply, which is the reason for actually partnering with the Chartered Institute of Taxation to organize this workshop and this webinar, is to let us know the work that lies ahead this year regarding the e-invoicing mandate. The emerging and the medium taxpayers would be given mandate to onboard, and that is a large chunk of work to be done. And if the professionals doesn't know what they ought to do per time, it's going to actually cause chaos within the business environment, which we don't want. The partners that we have here with us are actually here to show you some of the ways in which you can come in to simplify this process of onboarding for your clients or for your businesses. Because in the e-invoicing ecosystem, it gives you room to do it yourself or to get a consultant to help you do it. So whichever one is your choice, there's something for you that you can do in order to ensure that you comply with the e-invoicing mandate as enshrined in the NTA 1 section 158, so that you're not caught off guard. So currently, if you are a large taxpayer and you're yet to fully onboard, it means you're already behind schedule. But with this sensitization, with this awareness, I know a lot of businesses would have a clear understanding of what e-invoicing is all about, because the biggest challenge that we have is that a lot of people don't know what to do. And I know if we ask 1 or 2 or 3 people here this presentation that I did, you will have different opinions. But I know before this session would end, before this workshop would end, each and every one of us would have a clear blueprint of what is expected of every business actor within the business environment. E-invoicing has gone live, and that's why we are here. We want people to understand what e-invoice is all, a clear understanding of what is expected by businesses. How businesses should comply is very important. Where there is doubt, where there is confusion, definitely there would be what? Challenges for our intended audience to comply. So, e-invoicing generally, as we talked about, is to ensure that at the tip of our finger, we're able to say what economic activities are happening in Nigeria. It's not just for tax purpose. It's also part of broader national planning scheme, whereby the government wants to be able to know the performance in each sector of the economy, so that when time for fiscal planning comes, we have robust data to speak to when government makes policies to guide the development or the prosperity of certain sectors, and know areas in which they would grant relief or control in order to guide the Nigerian economy to where it should be. And also, the intent of government is to open up Nigerian businesses to be able to connect with their global contemporaries, to ensure that whenever they hear Nigeria, they are comfortable to do business with us. Because we have a single source of truth that any invoice issued out of this country, whosoever received that invoice from a supplier from Nigeria can actually double check that invoice and be sure that that invoice is authentic. We know in the business scheme, in the global business space, invoices coming from Nigeria, people don't take them serious because of the issues within our economic space. I would say it is quite unfortunate, but I think the only tool that can minimize the quantum of issues that we have within the business environment is technology, because technology actually brings about accountability. When people know that whatever you do is being tracked and they can follow that single source of truth, definitely compromises within the business environment will be. Banks will be able to fund your invoices or fund your confidently, knowing so well that the invoice you're presenting to them, or the collateral or the trade facilitation instrument that they are working with is actually authentic. And how would they authenticate it? There's a national database where all business documents are actually kept, and it's not controlled by an individual. It is controlled by the country. What's the business value for e-invoicing? People have already started seeing the value that is in e-invoicing. First and foremost, it comes with its automated tax calculation. It's not just even automated tax calculation. The same thing you're doing in your pitch tree, the same thing you're doing in any of your accounting software, as you are working on it, it is being transmitted directly to the e-invoicing ecosystem. So thereby it means period of you carrying manual calculators to add, deduct, subtract, and do all those things, divide, is over. It automates every of the process of issuance of invoice. And if you know, currently in the NTA and the NTAA, the quantum of reports that businesses are expected to submit to the tax authority has increased far much more than what we had before. So, the e-invoicing project or the e-invoicing program would actually simplify that and makes it easy for you to meet up with your reporting compliance. In instances whereby you need to submit this to this department, you need to submit this to this department, once and for all, as you're processing your transaction via the e-invoicing MBS system, these data are being shared automatically for VAT purpose, either for output VAT or for input VAT, also for your company income tax. where you can claim your credits and also prove your revenue at any point in time. And also for your purchases of QCE, qualifying capital expenditure, to be sure that yes, you actually bought this equipment in your name and you paid the necessary taxes, because there's a baseline for any asset that is acquired by a company before credit is granted. It's stated in the NT. So we also have an inimitable audit trail of whatever you do. Whatever data you transmit, whatever transaction you do, the data is there. You can't add, you can't delete, you can't remove. So whatever activity you do there is locked. So for an invoice, this is where a lot of people will ask questions. What if I make a mistake in raising an invoice? Okay, as an accountant, when you make mistake in raising an invoice, what do you do based on accounting standard? Do you tear the invoice? Do you delete it? You do a corresponding adjustment through a journal in order to adjust it. But that first transaction is still there. The journal entry that you are entering is just in order to correct a defect in the original invoice or in the original entry. So it makes it inimitable, meaning you can't just tamper or take out figures without passing the necessary adjustments to your accounting system. So the e-invoicing solution also has that. You are free to actually pass journal entries to adjust any error in your transaction. However, you don't have opportunity to delete or remove.
What does the e-invoicing mean for the tax professional?
Then, empowering tax professionals. First and foremost, that's my domain. The truth is, taxation has gone digital. And any tax professional that wants to actually excel in this period or in this generation must be familiar with technology. We have seen that nobody maintains manual books again. All books of account have been automated. When you go for audit, they will just give you an access to their records on the system, not on paper anymore. So as a tax professional, this simplifies your work in as much as you know how to work with the technology. And it also creates opportunities. And I know we are aware there's distinction between who is a taxman and who is an accountant. There's a thin line, but the two are not the same. So, as a taxman, the e-invoicing scheme or area is your area. It's actually an area that's opened up a new vista of services that you can provide as tax services to your clients. We are here with the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. So I believe we're talking to tax professionals who prefer tax solutions and services to their clients. So e-invoicing now has been added as an additional buffet that you can give to your clients to ensure that they have less experience in working with the tax authority. So, and also this has simplified the work of the tax managers in companies or even in professional tax bodies or professional tax practice companies. Tax managers are the ones that have the hardest time to justify what accountants did previous month. You were not there, and sometimes you were not even consulted before those transactions were finalized. When it is now time for that transaction to be reported for tax purposes, the tax manager will be sweating. Often not. When he's asking the accountant or the finance manager, "Sir, how did you handle this transaction like this?" He said, "Yes, it is done. The vendor has gone. But sir, do you know the tax implication of this transaction?" He said, "Anyway, that's an afterthought. I am done. The payment has gone. So go and reconcile it." As a tax manager, you know, it's a very big problem. It's a very big problem. And this happens more often than not in Nigerian businesses. Because the tax manager sometimes is not regarded where decisions for financing or business arrangements are taken. He is not there. He's not the financial controller. He's not anywhere. But for most businesses who know the intent and the risk in taxation, whenever business decision, they get the tax manager to be part of the party that will make that decision, so that they opt proper tax advice that regards that business transaction. But with e-invoicing now, the tax manager has little to actually worry about. The only worry that he will have is if the business arrangement did not go well, to minimize the tax exposure of the client. At that point, it's a different dimension of management. It means they didn't take their tax plan serious. Because for every business arrangement or combination, what businesses should look out for is the tax implication of a particular transaction. And if you do that before executing that transaction, whatever is pushed to the e-invoicing environment becomes what it will be for tax purpose. So, the e-invoicing platform empowers tax managers and tax professionals to be able to give accurate tax advice and tax reporting to the relevant tax authorities at different levels, either at the national or at the subnational.
On more benefits,
all invoices that are being issued or emanate from a supplier can be validated on the MBS merchant buyer solution by the intended buyer, so that he is sure of the invoice he is getting. The traditional process is actually manual. We've seen instances where even checks that are issued for payment have been altered by adding a zero, by changing a word or a semantic, and the whole contract has a different meaning from what it was intended. But with e-invoicing, whatever you impute from your ERP and you transmit to the merchant buyer solution, it will remain like that. And whosoever wants to verify what was issued to them, like the buyer, he simply needs to go there, enter the IRN, which is the invoice reference number, and he'll be able to see the details there by himself. Then we have the data integrity, which I have talked about. The data cannot be tampered with. And whosoever tampers with an invoice that has already been issued, either by passing a credit note or a debit note, the details will also be there as to when it was done, who did it, and what's the basis of doing it. It is no longer news, more often than not, that what companies submit to different regulatory authorities as books of accounts are not the same. But with e-invoicing now, you will not be doing your client any good to submit any documents or any financial reports to different documents to different regulatory authorities. Because now all the regulatory authorities have a single source of truth, which is the MBS, which is the Merchant Buyer Solution. So what you submit at the Corporate Affairs Commission, what you submit for banks at CBN, what you submit to the respective, either an insurance company, to the Nigerian Insurance Commission, and also what you submit to the Nigerian Revenue Service is accessible to everybody. So there is no longer silo or segments or boundaries or Chinese wall in between these regulatory authorities again. Because the merchant buyer solution is a national solution that all stakeholders that need this financial data for fiscal planning have access to it. It will surprise you that sometimes even the invoice that they give to the revenue authority for audit is different from invoice that they actually issue out for business. It's no longer news. But with e-invoicing, that has been phased out. Because as you're issuing that invoice from your ERP and it's being transmitted to the e-invoicing or the merchant buyer solution, that is what will be relied on for tax purposes and also for national planning. Meaning, if you're entitled to any incentive, what the government would actually go and review and look at is how you're doing in actually reporting your transaction.
What are the implications of e-invoicing for tax compliance?
Then we have the tax reporting. Reporting, as we know, for the manual environment is periodic, meaning businesses, the tax manager picks up his work at the end of the month for VAT to prepare the monthly VAT and submit. The same thing with payee. The same thing with other transactional taxes. Then for company income tax, he has 6 months after the end of the accounting period to prepare those books. But with the e-invoicing scheme, you no longer have 6 months. You no longer have to wait until the end of the period. So the work of the tax manager has been simplified. As businesses are happening, reporting is happening automatic. And the tax manager is sitting on his system in order to analyze that data just to get ready for reconciliation. So that at the end of the period, he's just making adjustments to some of the line items that events after the transaction has affected. So it is very important for us to have that. Then we have fraud detection. Just as I said, one way of fraud prevention is auditability of a system. When you know that whatever you do can actually be traced and tracked to you, it sends a caution for you. So in the manual environment, I can actually cover my tracks. I can steal the file away. I can destroy the exhibit. I can do so many things. I can tamper with the records. However, on the merchant buyer solution, you don't have that window to do that. Even if you succeed in doing it, it can also be traced. The original will be there. Then the adjustments that you made to arrive at where you arrived at, that you feel comfortable, will also be there. So you have not succeeded in doing anything or in tampering with anything. You've just succeeded in providing more evidence that will be used for your follow-up and for further explanation. So it's quite easy. So why not just do 1 line, 2 lines, so that when they come, the explanation will be quite easy for you, than to do 10, so that you have 10 explanations to do. We look at comprehensive benefit across stakeholders. I don't need to say much, because I know with what I have said, it is clear the benefit both to businesses and also to government. And we don't need to go into it. For businesses, you don't need to wait or look for any further place, rather than go to the MBS to validate any invoice that has been issued to you before you honor it. And we see we have reduced reconciliation, we have reduced disputes, because the activities of the actors in a transaction cycle is already there. Then we have enhanced financial accuracy and compliance assurance. For those that are tax practitioners, we know CETA gave room for error, isn't it? When you check the NTA, error is being sanctioned, meaning you don't have room to make any mistake for your tax returns. When you make such mistakes, don't worry, the law will catch up with you. What will help you to achieve that is actually the automation. For our NRS, we know it broadens our scope. It gives us visibility into what our businesses are going through and what they are doing. So that when you come, before you present your financials, we already know what we're expecting from you. We won't ask you to bring what you don't have, but you must give us what you have. If you understand, that's good. Then for the economy, government will have robust data to do fiscal planning and national economic management. Then we see the ecosystem has been opened up because in the MBS, in the e-invoicing environment, FIRS or NRS and NIDA, we are just regulators. The ecosystem has been opened to digitize the business environment. You know, it's not every business in Nigeria that can afford an ERP. Are we together? And by law, they are expected to report their invoices digitally. The potential that the e-invoicing ecosystem creates is something that can be imagined. Innovators and inventors can come up with solutions that will create value chains that can crystallize or expand our digital footprint in Nigeria. So if you are here, you're thinking of where to delve in, the e-invoicing ecosystem has been opened for you. Go and look around and see what you can do to actually what? Expand the digital footprint in Nigeria's economy. It also reduces tax leakages, data-driven policy making, global alignment with other businesses.
There you are, e-invoicing. There's something in it for everyone: the business owner, the tax practitioner, the tax collector, and of course, the revenue profile of Nigeria. Surely, this is a game changer. We are not done yet. There is more to come. In the next installment, there will be demonstration of the electronic invoicing platform, followed by an interactive session with attendees.